Frostbite Horizon, a sci-fi story. Part 1. The storm had already swallowed the sky when the alarms began to scream. Rourke didn't hear them at first. Not over the roar of the wind battering the outer hull, not over the thunderous groan of ice shifting beneath the mining facility. But when the lights flickered and the floor lurched sideways, he knew something catastrophic had happened. "Seal the bulkheads," someone shouted behind him. Too late. A tremor rippled through the entire structure. A deep, resonant crack that felt like the planet itself was splitting open. Rourke slammed into a wall, caught himself, and looked up just in time to see a ceiling panel tear loose and crash to the floor. The storm outside howled like a living thing, and then the power died. Darkness swallowed the corridor. Only the emergency strips along the floor remained, glowing a faint, sickly blue. Rourke exhaled once, slow and controlled. "We're buried. Or about to be." He pushed himself upright and keyed his comm. "Rourke to command. Status. Static." He tried again. "Command? Do you copy?" More static, but beneath it a low rumble. Not mechanical. Not human. Something shifting. Something massive. He swallowed hard. "Anyone?" A voice finally crackled through, thin and distorted. "Arc facility. Collapsing meat. Central hub." Then silence. Rourke didn't waste time. He grabbed his thermal mask, snapped it over his face, and sprinted down the corridor toward the central hub. The floor vibrated again. A long, rolling shudder. Snow and ice hammered the outer walls. The storm was no longer outside, it was on top of them. The entire mining complex, once perched on the surface of the ice planet Vesper 9, was being swallowed by the superstorm. Buried alive. The last survivors. When Rourke reached the central hub, only 3 others were there. Dr. Celine Ward, the station's xenogeologist, was hunched over a console, her dark hair plastered to her forehead with sweat despite the freezing air. Harlan Briggs, the grizzled drill operator, was pacing like a caged animal. And Mira, the facility's AI technician, was desperately trying to coax life back into the failing systems. The hub lights flickered as Rourke entered. Celine looked up. "Thank God. We thought you were trapped in Section C." "I was," Rourke said. "Not anymore. What's our status?" Mira didn't look away from her console. "Bad. The storm hit harder than predicted. We're under at least a kilometer of snow already. Maybe more." Briggs spat a curse. "We're entombed." Celine shot him a glare. "Not helping." Rourke stepped forward. "Power. Failing," Mira said. "The geothermal taps are offline. The storm's electromagnetic interference fried half our relays. We're running on emergency reserves." "How long?" 3 hours. Maybe. Rourke felt the cold bite deeper into his bones. The temperature was dropping fast. Without geothermal heat, the facility would freeze solid. "What about comms?" he asked. "Dead," Mira said. "The storm's blocking everything." Briggs slammed a fist into the wall. "We're screwed." "No," Celine said quietly. "There's still the vent station." Rourke turned to her. "The geothermal outpost? That's 20 kilometers east." 22, she corrected. "But it's above the storm line. It has independent power, oxygen recyclers, and a direct uplink to orbit." Briggs barked a laugh. "You want us to walk 22 kilometers in this? Through a superstorm? Across ice that's cracking like glass?" Celine met his gaze without flinching. "If we stay here, we freeze. If we go, we might live." Rourke nodded slowly. "She's right." Briggs stared at him. "You're siding with her?" "I'm siding with survival." Mira finally turned from her console. "There's something else." They all looked at her. She swallowed. "The ice beneath us. It's thinning." Rourke frowned. "What do you mean thinning?" "I mean it's melting. Fast. The sensors are reading a temperature spike from below." Celine's eyes widened. "The subglacial ocean." Briggs shook his head. "Impossible. That ocean is supposed to be hundreds of meters down." "It was," Mira said. "Now it's 50. Maybe less. A deep, Resonant groan echoed through the hub, the unmistakable sound of ice fracturing. Rourke felt the floor shift beneath his boots. Celine whispered, "The ocean's rising." "No," Mira said softly. "Something in it is rising." The first descent. They didn't have time to argue. The facility shuddered again, harder this time. A crack split the floor near the far wall, thin but widening. Rourke grabbed a pack from the emergency locker. "We move now. Thermal suits, oxygen, rations. Take only what you can carry." Briggs muttered curses but obeyed. Celine secured her research tablet, the only thing she refused to leave behind. Mira pulled up a holographic map. "The shortest route to the vent station is across the Ridge of Knives." Briggs groaned. "Of course it is." Rourke studied the map. The ridge was a jagged expanse of ice spires and crevasses, dangerous even in calm weather. But there was no calm weather left. "Fine," he said. "We take the ridge." Mira hesitated. "There's something else." The seismic sensors picked up movement under the ice. Large movement. "How large?" Rourke asked. She didn't answer. Celine did. "Bigger than the facility." Briggs froze. "You're joking." Celine shook her head. "I wish I were." Another tremor rippled through the hub. The crack in the floor widened with a sharp, splintering sound. Rourke didn't wait for more. "Move!" They sprinted down the corridor toward the airlock. The lights flickered violently. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees. Frost formed on the walls in delicate, branching patterns. Halfway to the airlock, the floor buckled. Celine screamed as she fell, sliding toward a widening fissure. Rourke lunged, grabbed her arm, and hauled her back just as the crack split open beneath them. A blast of warm, humid air surged upward from the darkness. Warm. From the ocean. Briggs stared into the steaming abyss. "What the hell is happening down there?" Celine's voice trembled. "The ocean is heating. Something is stirring it." Rourke didn't look down. "We don't have time to find out." They reached the airlock. Mira slammed the controls. The inner door sealed behind them with a hiss. The outer door opened, and the storm hit them like a wall. Into the white. The wind was a living force, a screaming, freezing beast that clawed at their suits and shoved them sideways. Snow blasted their visors, reducing visibility to a few meters. Rourke leaned into the gale, forcing each step. "Stay close," he shouted over the comms. Their suit lights cut narrow tunnels through the blizzard. Briggs trudged behind him, cursing with every breath. "This is suicide." "Keep moving," Rourke said. Celine stumbled but caught herself. "The ridge should be 2 kilometers east. Assuming the storm hasn't reshaped the terrain," Mira added. Rourke didn't respond. He didn't want to think about how much the landscape might have changed. The storm howled around them, a constant, deafening roar. The cold was so intense it felt like pressure, like the air itself was trying to crush them. After 20 minutes, the ground trembled again. A deep, rolling vibration. Rourke froze. "Did you feel that?" Briggs snorted. "Hard not to." Celine checked her scanner. "Seismic activity. Strong. Something's moving under the ice." Myra's voice was barely a whisper. "It's following us." Rourke turned slowly, peering into the blizzard behind them. Nothing. Just white. But the tremor came again, closer. He tightened his grip on his ice axe. "Move. Now." They pushed forward, faster this time. The wind screamed louder, as if trying to drown out the sound of the shifting ice. Then, through the storm, Rourke saw it. A shadow. Massive. Moving beneath the ice. It glided like a whale, but impossibly large. A dark shape the size of a skyscraper, drifting just below the surface. Rourke's breath caught. Eyes forward. "Don't stop." Briggs looked down and swore violently. "That thing is right under us." Celine's voice shook. "It's curious." "Curious?" Briggs snapped. "It's hunting." "No," she said. "If it were hunting, we'd already be dead." The shadow drifted closer, passing beneath their feet. The ice groaned under its weight, or perhaps under its presence. Mira whispered. It's warm. Rourke frowned. What? The ocean. The creature. It's radiating heat. That's why the ice is melting. Briggs shook his head. Great. A giant underwater furnace monster. The shadow slowed, then stopped. Right beneath them, the ice cracked. A thin fracture line shot outward from beneath Rourke's boots. Run! He shouted. They sprinted across the ice as the fissure widened behind them. The shadow moved again, following their path. The ice buckled. A massive plume of steam erupted behind them as warm water surged upward. Rourke didn't look back. He didn't need to. The sound was enough. A deep, resonant bellow that vibrated through the ice and into his bones. Whatever lived beneath the surface had awakened. And it was rising. The Ridge of Knives. They reached the base of the ridge just as the tremors subsided. The storm was still brutal, but the terrain here was different. Jagged spires of ice rising like frozen teeth, forming a labyrinth of narrow passages. Briggs leaned against a pillar, panting. We can't outrun that thing. We don't have to, Celine said. The ridge is too dense. You can't follow us under the ice here. Rourke scanned the spires. We move through the narrow channels. Single file. Mira checked her map. If we follow the ridgeline north, we can cut the distance to the vent station by 5 kilometers. Good, Rourke said. Let's move. They entered the labyrinth. The wind howled overhead, but inside the ice corridors, it was muted. A distant, ghostly wail. Their suit lights reflected off the crystalline walls, scattering into shimmering patterns. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. Then Celine stopped. Wait! Rourke turned. What is it? She pointed at the ice wall beside them. Embedded within the translucent surface was a shape. Long, sinuous, organic. Briggs stepped back. Tell me that's a rock. It's not a rock, Celine whispered. The shape was coiled like a serpent, frozen mid-motion. Its skin, or what remained of it, was pale and ridged. His eyes were closed. Mira scanned it. It's dead. Or dormant. Celine shook her head. No, it's ancient. Rourke frowned. How ancient? Thousands of years. Maybe more. Briggs spat. Great. This planet is full of giant ice snakes. Celine touched the ice gently. Not snakes. Something else. Something adapted to both ice and water. Rourke didn't like the sound of that. We keep moving. They continued through the ridge, weaving between towering spires. The storm above raged on, but the ice beneath their feet remained stable. For now, after an hour, they reached a narrow bridge of ice spanning a deep crevasse. Rourke tested it with his boot. Solid. Single file, he said. Slow and steady. He crossed first. Halfway across, the tremors returned. A deep, rolling vibration. Celine gasped. It's back, Briggs shouted. How the hell did it get ahead of us? It didn't, Mira said. It's beneath us. The ice bridge cracked. Rourke lunged forward, reaching solid ground just as the bridge shattered behind him. Celine screamed as she fell, but Briggs grabbed her arm, Mira grabbed Briggs, and together they hauled her back up onto the ledge. The crevasse below filled with steam as warm water surged upward. The creature bellowed again. A sound so deep it felt like the planet itself was groaning. Rourke pulled Celine to her feet. Move! Now! They ran along the ridge, the tremors following them like footsteps. The creature was no longer curious. It was hunting. The signal. They didn't stop until the tremors faded. By then, they were exhausted, freezing, and half-blind from the storm. Mira collapsed against an ice wall. We can't keep this pace. We have to, Rourke said. Celine checked her scanner. The vent station is still 15 kilometers away. Briggs groaned. We're dead. No, Mira said suddenly. We're not. She held up her wrist display. A faint signal pulsed on the screen. Rourke frowned. What is that? An uplink beacon, Mira said. From the vent station. Celine's eyes widened. Someone activated it. Briggs stared at her. You mean someone's alive out there? Mira nodded. Yes. Rourke felt a spark of hope. Then we're not alone. But the hope faded when the ground trembled again. Stronger this time. Closer. Celine whispered. It's coming. Rourke tightened his grip on his axe. Then we move. Toward the beacon. Briggs swallowed hard. And if it catches us? Rourke looked out into the storm. We make sure it regrets it. Part 2. The White Labyrinth. The storm only grew worse. The wind screamed through the ridge of knives, turning every narrow passage into a wind tunnel. Ice shards whipped through the air like razors, slicing at their suits. Rourke kept his head low, pushing forward through the blinding white. Beacon still active, Mira said, her voice trembling through the comms. Signal strength increasing. That means we're getting closer, Celine said. Briggs grunted. Or something else is. Rourke didn't respond. He didn't need to. The tremors beneath the ice had faded for now, but the memory of that colossal shadow lingered in his mind like a bruise. They moved deeper into the labyrinth. The ice spires around them grew taller, sharper, more twisted, as if sculpted by a mad god. Their lights refracted through the crystalline walls, scattering into ghostly shapes that danced at the edges of their vision. Celine slowed, staring at one of the walls. Look at this. Rourke turned. Embedded in the ice was another creature, but this one was different from the serpent-like form they'd seen earlier. This one had limbs. Long, spindly limbs ending in webbed claws. Its torso was elongated, its head narrow and finned. Briggs recoiled. What the hell is that? Celine's voice was hushed. An amphibious species, adapted for both water and ice tunnels. Mira scanned it. It's humanoid. Briggs barked a laugh. Humanoid? That thing looks like a nightmare. Celine touched the ice gently. It's ancient. The ice around it is at least 10,000 years old. Rourke frowned. Meaning this planet had complex life long before we arrived. Not just complex, Celine said. Intelligent. Briggs shook his head. You're telling me fish people built something? Celine hesitated. Maybe not built, but they adapted. Survived. Thrived. Rourke stepped back. We keep moving. Whatever lived here is long gone. But as they turned away, the ice behind them cracked. A thin fracture line spread across the wall, right through the creature's frozen form. Celine whispered, or maybe not. The icefall. The ridge narrowed ahead, forming a steep incline. The storm battered them from above, but the ice beneath their boots remained solid. For now, Rourke led the way up the slope, planting his ice axe with each step. The others followed, their breaths fogging their visors. Halfway up, the ground trembled again. A deep, rolling vibration. Briggs groaned. Not again. Mira checked her scanner. It's not the creature. This is different. Rourke felt it too. A rhythmic pulse, like distant thunder. Celine's eyes widened. Avalanche. The word had barely left her mouth when the ridge above them exploded. A wall of snow and ice roared down the slope, a white tsunami. Move! Rourke shouted. They scrambled upward, slipping, clawing at the ice. The avalanche thundered closer, swallowing everything in its path. Celine slipped. Rourke grabbed her arm, hauling her up just as the avalanche slammed into the slope below them. Snow surged around their legs, threatening to drag them down. Briggs planted his axe and anchored himself. Grab on! Rourke shoved Celine toward him, then dug his own axe into the ice. Mira clung to a jagged outcrop, her suit alarms blaring. The avalanche roared past them, shaking the ridge. Snow and ice hammered their suits, threatening to tear them loose. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. Silence returned, heavy, suffocating. Rourke exhaled shakily. Everyone intact? Celine nodded. Barely. Mira checked her suit. Minor damage. Nothing critical. Briggs spat snow. I hate this planet. Rourke looked up the ridge. We keep moving. But as they climbed, he couldn't shake the feeling that the avalanche wasn't natural. Something had triggered it. Something massive. Something watching. The frozen cathedral. The ridge opened into a vast chamber, a natural cavern carved from ice, its ceiling arching high above like the dome of a cathedral. Their lights reflected off the walls, creating shimmering patterns that danced across the frozen floor. Celine gasped. Incredible. Briggs muttered. Creepy. Rourke scanned the chamber. Stay alert. They moved cautiously across the cavern. The air here was strangely still, the storm muted to a distant whisper. The ice beneath their boots was smooth, almost polished. Then Mira stopped. Rourke, look at this. She pointed at the floor. Carved into the ice were markings, symbols, patterns, a language. Celine knelt beside them, her eyes wide. This is deliberate, intelligent, ancient. Briggs shook his head. You're telling me fish people wrote poetry on the floor? Celine ignored him. These symbols, they're directional. A map, maybe. Rourke frowned. A map to what? Before she could answer, the ground trembled. A deep, resonant vibration. But this time it wasn't beneath them. It was above. Rourke looked up. The ceiling cracked. A massive fissure split the ice dome, sending shards raining down. The chamber groaned, the sound echoing like thunder. Run! Rourke shouted. They sprinted across the cavern as the ceiling collapsed behind them. Ice pillars shattered. The floor buckled. A massive chunk of the dome crashed down where they'd been seconds earlier. They reached the far side of the chamber just as the entire ceiling gave way. A blinding flash of white. A deafening roar. Then silence. When the snow settled, the cavern was gone, buried beneath tons of ice. Rourke leaned against a wall, panting. Everyone alive? Celine nodded weakly. Yes. Mira swallowed. That wasn't natural. Briggs glared at the ceiling. You think the giant sea monster threw a tantrum? Celine shook her head. No. Something else caused that collapse. Rourke didn't like the sound of that. We move. Now. The warm wind. They emerged from the collapsed cavern into a narrow canyon of ice. The storm still raged above, but here the wind carried something strange. Warmth. A faint, humid breeze drifted through the canyon, carrying with it the scent of minerals and steam. Celine inhaled sharply. Geothermal activity. Mira checked her scanner. The vent station is close. Less than 8 kilometers. Briggs sighed with relief. Finally, some good news. But Rourke wasn't convinced. Why is the air warm here? Celine hesitated. The geothermal vents might be expanding. Or rupturing. Or something is heating them, Mira added quietly. Rourke tightened his grip on his axe. Stay sharp. They followed the warm wind through the canyon. The ice walls glowed faintly, illuminated from within by the geothermal heat. Steam rose from cracks in the ground. Then they heard it. A sound carried on the warm breeze. A low, rhythmic hum. Almost musical. Celine froze. Do you hear that? Briggs frowned. What is it? Myra's voice trembled. It's singing. Rourke shook his head. No. It's resonance. The ice is vibrating. Celine stepped closer to the canyon wall. No, Rourke. Listen. He did. And he heard it. A melody. Soft. Haunting. Alien. Briggs backed away. Nope. Nope. I'm not listening to ghost wails. Celine's eyes were wide. This is communication. A signal. Rourke frowned. From what? Before she could answer, the canyon floor cracked. A plume of steam erupted beneath them, knocking them off their feet. The ground trembled violently. Mira screamed. It's rising again. Rourke scrambled to his feet. Move! They sprinted through the canyon as the ice behind them shattered. Steam geysers erupted in rapid succession, each one closer than the last. The humming grew louder, deeper, more urgent. Celine shouted, It's calling to something. Briggs yelled, or warning something. Rourke didn't care which. They ran. The breach. The canyon opened into a wide plateau, a flat expanse of ice stretching toward the distant silhouette of the geothermal vent station. It was close, so close, but the ground beneath them trembled again. Harder. Faster. Mira screamed. It's directly below us. Rourke turned. The ice behind them bulged upward. A massive dome of ice rose from the surface, cracking, splintering, glowing with heat from below. Celine whispered, "It's breaching." Briggs shouted, "Run!" They sprinted across the plateau as the dome of ice shattered behind them. A geyser of steam erupted skyward. Then something emerged. Something colossal. Something alive. A massive shape rose from the breach. A creature of impossible scale, its body shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. Its skin ridged and plated like ancient armor. Its eyes, enormous, luminous, opened slowly, focusing on the tiny figures fleeing across the ice. Celine gasped, "It's beautiful." Briggs screamed, "It's going to kill us." The creature bellowed. A sound so deep it shook the air, the ice, their bones. Rourke didn't look back. "Run!" They sprinted toward the vent station as the creature rose higher, its massive form towering over the plateau. The ground cracked beneath its weight. Steam billowed around it. Its glowing eyes followed them. Mira shouted, "It's not attacking." Celine nodded breathlessly. "It's observing." Briggs yelled, "I don't care what it's doing. Keep running." The vent station loomed ahead. A cluster of metal structures perched atop a geothermal fissure, glowing faintly with heat. They were almost there, almost safe. Then the creature moved. Slowly, deliberately, it lowered its massive head toward the ice. And the ice began to melt. Rapidly, a wave of warm water surged across the plateau, racing toward them. Rourke shouted, "Jump!" They leaped onto the metal platform of the vent station just as the water reached their boots. The creature stopped, its glowing eyes fixed on them. Then, slowly it sank back beneath the ice. The breach sealed behind it. Silence returned. Rourke collapsed against the railing, panting. Celine stared at the ice. "It wasn't trying to kill us." Briggs glared at her. "It sure as hell wasn't trying to help." Mira whispered, "It was curious." Rourke stood slowly. "Curious or not, we're alive." He looked at the vent station door. Part 3. The vent station. The geothermal vent station loomed above them like a fortress carved from steel and frost. Its towers rose from the ice, glowing faintly with heat from the fissure below. Steam drifted from vents along its base, forming ghostly plumes in the storm. Rourke approached the main door and slammed his fist against the access panel. Nothing. He tried again. Still nothing. Briggs groaned. "Don't tell me it's dead." Mira stepped forward, prying open the panel with her multi-tool. "Power's on. The lock's just frozen." Celine shivered. "Can you override it?" Mira didn't answer. She was already working. Sparks flew. The panel beeped. The door groaned. Then it slid open. Warm air washed over them. Rourke exhaled in relief. Inside. Now. They stepped into the station's entry chamber. The warmth was shocking, almost painful after the brutal cold outside. Frost melted from their suits, dripping onto the metal floor. Briggs sighed. "Feels like heaven." Celine scanned the room. "Where is everyone?" The station was silent. Too silent. Rourke removed his helmet. "Stay alert." They moved deeper into the facility. The lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows across the walls. Steam hissed from pipes. The air smelled of minerals and metal. Mira checked her scanner. The beacon was activated from the control room. "Then that's where we're going," Rourke said. But as they approached the central corridor, they saw it. A smear of dark, dried blood across the floor. Briggs froze. "Oh hell." Celine knelt beside it. "It's old. Days, maybe." Rourke's jaw tightened. Weapons out. They continued down the corridor, following the trail of blood. It led to a door marked Maintenance Bay 3. Rourke opened it. Inside, they found the first body. A technician, slumped against the wall, his suit torn open. His face was pale, frozen in a mask of terror. Celine whispered, "What happened to him?" Mira scanned the body. No signs of animal attack. No burns. No toxins. Briggs frowned. Then what killed him? Mira hesitated. Fear. Rourke stared at her. Fear doesn't kill people. It can, she said quietly. If the shock is severe enough. Celine shivered. Something scared him to death. Rourke stood. We keep moving. But as they left the bay, the lights flickered again, and the humming returned. Soft, haunting, coming from deep within the station. Celine whispered, "It followed us." The survivor. The control room door was half open. Rourke pushed it aside cautiously. Inside, consoles flickered with low power. Steam drifted from ruptured pipes. The beacon transmitter pulsed steadily in the corner. And in the center of the room, huddled beneath a thermal blanket, was a man. Alive. Barely. He looked up as they entered, his eyes wide with exhaustion and fear. Don't make noise," he whispered. Celine rushed to him. "It's okay. We're here to help." He grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "No, you don't understand. It hears everything." Rourke knelt beside him. "Who are you?" "Engineer. Lien Voss," he gasped. "I activated the beacon. I thought someone might come." Briggs frowned. "What happened here?" Voss trembled. "The vents, they opened. The heat. It woke them." Celine's eyes widened. "Woke what?" Voss stared at her, his voice barely audible. "The ones beneath the ice." Mira swallowed. "The creatures." Voss shook his head violently. "Not creatures. Not animals. They're ancient. Intelligent. They built the tunnels. The symbols. The resonance chambers." Celine whispered, "The frozen cathedral." Voss nodded. "A communication hub. A warning system." Rourke frowned. "Warning about what?" Voss's voice cracked. "About the Leviathan." Briggs groaned. "Oh great. It has a name." Celine leaned closer. "What is the Leviathan?" Voss stared at the floor. "A guardian. A sentinel. Keeps the ocean stable. Regulates the geothermal vents. Maintains the balance." Rourke's stomach tightened. "And we disrupted that balance." Voss nodded weakly. "Our drilling. Our heat extraction. We woke it. Confused it. Thinks we're a threat." Mira whispered, "That's why it followed us." Celine shook her head. "No, it wasn't attacking. It was observing." Voss grabbed her arm again. "It's not the Leviathan you need to fear." Rourke frowned. "Then what?" Voss's eyes filled with terror. "The others." "The others." The station trembled. A deep, resonant vibration. But this time it wasn't the Leviathan. It was something smaller. Faster. Closer. Rourke stood. "What's in the station, Voss?" Voss shook his head. "They came through the vents. The smaller ones. Scouts. Hunters." Briggs raised his weapon. "Fantastic." Celine looked at Rourke. "We need to seal the station." Mira checked the console. "I can lock down the bulkheads. But the geothermal core is unstable. If we seal everything, pressure will build." Rourke asked, "How long until it blows?" "An hour," Mira said. "Maybe less." Briggs groaned. "So we're either eaten or exploded." Celine turned to Voss. "How many of the smaller ones are there?" Voss trembled. "Dozens. Maybe more." Rourke tightened his grip on his axe. "We need to move. Now." But before they could leave the control room, the lights went out. Total darkness. Then the humming began again. Not from the ice. From the vents. Celine whispered, "They're here." The hunt. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the corridor in red. Rourke led the group toward the geothermal core chamber, the only place where they might find tools, weapons, or an escape route. But the humming followed them, growing louder, closer. Briggs whispered, "I hate that sound." Mira checked her scanner. Movement. Multiple signatures. Surrounding us. Rourke quickened his pace. "Keep moving." They reached a junction. Left. The geothermal core. Right, the maintenance tunnels. Straight ahead, the observation deck. Celine pointed left. Core chamber. We can stabilize the vents. Briggs pointed right. Maintenance tunnels lead outside. We can run. Mira pointed forward. Observation deck has the uplink. We can call for evac. Rourke hesitated. Then the humming surged. A creature emerged from the vent behind them. It was smaller than the Leviathan, maybe 3 meters long, but still massive. Its body was sleek, amphibious, with bioluminescent patterns along its spine. Its limbs were long and webbed, ending in razor-sharp claws. Its eyes glowed with intelligence. Celine gasped. It's one of the ancient species. Briggs raised his weapon. I'm shooting it. No! Celine shouted. Too late. Briggs fired. The creature shrieked. A piercing, resonant cry that shook the walls. Then it lunged. Rourke tackled Briggs out of the way as the creature slammed into the wall, claws carving deep gouges in the metal. Mira screamed. More coming. Rourke made the call. Observation deck. Move. They sprinted down the corridor as more creatures poured from the vents, their glowing eyes cutting through the darkness. The humming became a chorus, a hunting song. The uplink. They burst into the observation deck and slammed the door shut behind them. Mira locked it manually, her hands shaking. The deck overlooked the geothermal fissure, a churning sea of steam and molten rock far below. The heat fogged the windows. Rourke turned to Mira. Get the uplink online. She rushed to the console. Trying. Celine looked out the window. The Leviathan. It's close. Rourke joined her. Far below, beneath the ice, a massive shadow moved. Slow, deliberate, watching. Briggs paced nervously. We're trapped. Celine shook her head. No, the Leviathan isn't attacking. It's waiting. Rourke frowned. For what? Before she could answer, the door behind them buckled. Claws pierced the metal. Mira shouted, Uplink online. Rourke grabbed the transmitter. This is Rourke of the Vesper 9 mining crew. We need immediate evac. Coordinates transmitting now. Static. Then a voice. Copy that, Rourke. Storm's too strong for landing, but we can send a drop shuttle. ETA 10 minutes. Briggs groaned. We don't have 10 minutes. The door buckled again. A creature's head forced its way through, shrieking. Celine screamed. Rourke swung his axe, striking the creature's skull. It recoiled, hissing. Mira shouted, Pressure in the geothermal core is spiking. The station's going to blow. Rourke made the final call. We're jumping. Briggs stared at him. Into the fissure? Are you insane? Rourke pointed at the emergency rappel cables. We descend to the lower platform. The shuttle can grab us from there. Celine nodded. It's our only chance. The door burst open. Creatures flooded the room. Rourke grabbed Celine's hand. Go! They leaped over the railing. The descent. The heat was overwhelming. Steam blasted their suits as they rappelled down the side of the station toward the lower platform. The creatures shrieked above, clawing at the railing. Briggs yelled, They're coming down after us. Celine looked up. No, they're retreating. Rourke frowned. Why? Then he saw it. The Leviathan, rising beneath the ice. Its massive form glowed with bioluminescent patterns, illuminating the fissure. Its eyes locked onto the station. Celine whispered, It's protecting us. Briggs stared. What? The smaller ones fear it, she said. It's their guardian, their elder, their god. The Leviathan bellowed. A deep, resonant call that shook the fissure. The smaller creatures fled. Rourke reached the lower platform and unhooked his cable. Shuttle ETA? Mira checked her display. 30 seconds. The station above them groaned. Metal warped. Pipes burst. Steam erupted. Celine shouted, It's going to blow! The Leviathan rose higher, positioning itself between the fissure and the station. Rourke realized what it was doing. It's shielding the ocean. Briggs stared. From the explosion? Celine nodded. It's protecting the planet. The station detonated. A massive fireball erupted above them, sending shockwaves through the fissure. The Leviathan absorbed the blast, its massive body shielding the ocean below. The shockwave hit the platform. Rourke grabbed Celine as they were thrown sideways. Mira screamed. Briggs cursed. Then the shuttle descended through the smoke, its lights cutting through the chaos. A voice crackled over the comms. Hold on. We've got you. The shuttle's grappling arms extended, locking onto the platform. Rourke felt the ground drop away as they were lifted into the air. Below them, the Leviathan sank slowly beneath the ice, its glowing eyes watching them. Not with anger, not with fear, with understanding. The horizon. The shuttle broke through the storm clouds, rising into the clear sky above Vesper 9. Rourke collapsed into a seat, exhausted. Celine sat beside him, staring out the window. We were wrong about this planet. Briggs groaned. Understatement of the century. Mira wiped her eyes. Do you think the Leviathan survived? Rourke looked down at the swirling storm below. Yes. Celine nodded. It's ancient, resilient. It will heal. Briggs sighed. What about the smaller ones? Celine smiled faintly. They'll return to the depths. They never wanted to fight us. Rourke leaned back, closing his eyes. We were the intruders. Mira whispered. Do you think anyone will believe us? Rourke opened his eyes. No. Celine smiled. But we'll know. The shuttle ascended higher, leaving the storm behind. Below them, the ice planet stretched to the horizon. Vast, cold, mysterious. Alive. Rourke whispered. Frostbite horizon. Celine nodded. A world with a heartbeat. Briggs chuckled. Let's never come back. Mira smiled. Agreed. The shuttle turned toward orbit, leaving the frozen world behind. But far below, beneath the ice, a massive shadow moved. Slow, deliberate, watching, guarding, the Leviathan. This is the end of the sci-fi story, Frostbite Horizon. Leave a like if you enjoyed the story, and subscribe for more sci-fi stories. Thanks for listening.